Welcome to the Alain Elkann interviews, an unprecedented window into the minds of some of the most well-known and respected figures of the last 25 years.
We are in front of Madame Laurence who is President Directrice ou Directeur of the Louvre Museum, which, as everybody knows, I think is the largest museum in the world.
Yeah, it is.
Madame Elkann, who comes from the Musée d'Orsay, where she had the same title, which is just in front in the Seine, was started to be the Louvre since 2021. Of course, she had a career before, curator. She wrote books, for instance, on the Pre-Raphaelites. Then she was general curator of the Heritage, and director of the Musée de l'Orangerie, and so on and so forth. But now she took over the Louvre in a very delicate and important moment, I think. No, I think that you will tell me, I think that you were not very pleased with the general conditions of the museum, right?
Yes. First, let's start with, important things, that it was a great honor to be considered, for this position 3.5 years ago. And I owe to President Macron trust, in the project that I discussed with him, this possibility of running this extraordinary place. Louvre is a museum like no other. It's not only a question of size, which is always said, the biggest, the most important numbers of visitors or whatever. It is a very important museum in the history of museums in Europe and in the world. It used to be a royal residence, the building.
Therefore, it wasn't made to be a museum.
Absolutely, right? And it started in the medieval times. I mean, the building dates back to, the first foundations, medieval foundation dates back to, almost 9 centuries ago. And we have traces, this. So it's an extraordinary place, and it was transformed as a museum by the French Revolution 230 years ago as a symbol of the democratization and the installation, and the creation of a citizenship, really, and the idea that it was really for the emancipation of a citizen and for the education of the artist too. The connection with the artists is very, very important because it's still abound. And when you see even Louvre Couture today, it is about living artists being inspired by the Louvre collection. So it's something very important. But the reality, as you just mentioned, was that there were different types of problems that I encountered when I took my position. The first one is that the Louvre enjoys a fantastic success, and we can be, very happy about it.
8 to 9 million visitors.
It is 9 million, and it is 9 million every year. Even if I cap the number of new visitors, of daily visitors, to 30,000.
So you could have more.
Yes, and it was more before I came, before COVID. It was more than 10 million a year. And it's one of the first things that the security teams told me when I arrived, said, please, let's not get back to this kind of numbers because this is very difficult for the teams. This is uncomfortable for visitors and not so good for the works of art. We need to calm down and be in control of things. But the reality is that, as you know, there was a big transformation moment in the 1980s decided by President Mitterrand called Le Grand Louvre, with this extraordinary gesture of one unique single entrance.
This is the pyramid.
The pyramid, designed by Pei.
Yeah, right.
Which at that time made really sense. It simplified things. It was a modern symbol, within this historical building. Of course, it was full of controversy because this is France, so it's always starts with controversy. Whatever you do. And generally, a few years afterwards, people say, this was such a good idea. I always supported this idea, but that's France, But that was a very good idea at the time. But you have to have in mind, you have to realize that when the pyramid is opened in 1989, half of Europe were before the fall of the Berlin Wall. Half of Europe was not traveling as intensively as it is today. China was not traveling. The international tourism, but it was not at the level that it is today.
So many more people come to Paris.
Yes, and it was designed to welcome 4 million visitors at the most a year. And in 1989, in spring 1989, when the whole world inaugurated the pyramid, nobody would think, the political changes and of the growth of the number of visitors. The result is that by the mid-90s, the 4 million visitors were, of course, reached, and it never stopped, until the 10 million and so that I just mentioned. So the pyramid is structurally too small to welcome in a comfortable way this kind of number of people. Second problem, but it's a nice problem, our friend Mona Lisa.
La Joconde.
La Joconde, as we say in French. But we're the only one in the world to say La Joconde. So I'm saying it in English, and in English it's Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa is, of course, a masterpiece, deeply rooted in the history of Louvre and the royal collections, because it came with Leonardo when he came to France.
It was François
I, invited by François I, and it entered at the death of Leonardo, it entered the royal collection. So we really at the heart, of the Louvre collection.
People come to the Louvre to see the Mona Lisa sometimes.
More than 70% of our visitors want to see Mona Lisa during the visit. It's not that they come to see it, only to see it, but they wish to see it. Of course, it makes a lot of people. And, the fame of Mona Lisa, it was a very famous painting in the 19th century, for instance. But the modern fame of Mona Lisa started when it was stolen, just before First World War. It disappeared for 2 years. It was under a bed of a crazy Italian who used to live in Paris at that time, who stole it and kept it for himself and decided one day to go back to Italy and to offer it to a dealer who immediately recognized the picture. Because by that time, when it disappeared, it was reproduced in all the newspapers in the world who were at the height of the new modern press, and the photographic reproduction, was developing very fast.
So it became an image.
It's as I used to say, it's like Greta Garbo. She disappeared and she became more and more famous in a way. The absence created the desire. And since this moment, the fame of Mona Lisa became something of a stardom qualification. It is a superstar. It is no longer a picture like any other picture. It has a sort of status of itself, which for a very long time the Louvre denied, saying, no, this is Leonardo like the others.
You have others.
Yeah, we do. We are the only museum in the world which has 5 Leonardo paintings and many drawings also by Leonardo, but 5 paintings.
But the other 4 are less famous. They're not
but they are as beautiful as Mona Lisa to my taste and as fascinating. But Mona Lisa is a very singular work, and my predecessor tried to display it in other places, in other galleries, in other wings of the Louvre, and it failed every time because the number of people who want to see it is so important. And now she is in the Salle des États, which is the largest gallery in the Louvre, and it's not enough. So for a very long time, there was this ongoing conversation between the directors, my predecessors, the painting department, saying, what are we going to do? It was an endless discussion, I think people were ready, internally speaking, in the Louvre, say, okay, let's make a decision and do something about it, because we have this congestion of the pyramid, we have the congestion around the Mona Lisa, and half of the Louvre stays rather empty, and half of the Louvre has not been modernized by the Grand Louvre. The Grand Louvre concentrated in the Cour Napoléon, the first big court where the pyramid is, but completely neglected the Cour Carrée, beautiful, beautiful place. And the colonnade was very beautiful entry designed and wanted by Louis XIV before he leaves Paris for Versailles. He has this entry, and then he decides to go to Versailles and to have a court in Versailles. But the colonnade is facing Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois, a very beautiful historic. We are at the heart of the history of Paris. Really.
And are you going to put the Mona Lisa there?
No, we're going to create another entrance on the eastern side, in front of this colonnade, with a very smooth and easy access. And President Macron has announced an international competition to design this entrance, which should be very elegant, respect the colonnade, and integrate the Louvre within the heart of Paris, connect the Louvre to Paris. And also, as it will go underground, as it was done for the pyramid, because we cannot build, in front of the Louvre. This is a historical, and it's protected as a historical monument. So we will dig below the Cour Carrée, connect with the medieval Louvre at the same level. And there we have large spaces, and we can dedicate one gallery to Mona Lisa, one gallery to temporary exhibitions, another gallery to education, because we need to welcome more kids and schools.
But you said somewhere, or I read somewhere, that you also want to make an extra ticket for Mona Lisa, no?
No, the idea is that, but nothing is decided in details, because we are preparing the competition for the architect to design this. It will be decided next year. The choice of the project will be made in 26. And then we probably have around 5 years of works before.
So it's a long time.
It's a long time, but not a very long time for this kind of project. You know, it's rather normal. This is rather quick, as a matter of fact. So it means that the new gallery for Mona Lisa and this new way of functioning for the Louvre will be operational in 2031.
But you're not going to close the Louvre?
Never. This is very different from Pompidou. It's completely closing for renovation. This part of the building around Cour Napoleon will always stay open. The exhibition will still take place. You will be able to see Mona Lisa, the Victoire de Samothrace, Venus de Milo, and the other wonders of the Louvre. Why?
Yeah, because the Louvre, one doesn't say it so much, but I mean, it's a very important Egyptian collection.
It is. No, but it's... The
and
Louvre
then you have the Muslim...
Yeah, no, we have Islamic art department. The Louvre is so-called universal museum. I rather say universal vacation, because this is less complete than the Met in New York. In terms of, a lot of his previous collection went to other museums, including Orsay. When Orsay was created, dedicated to the second half of the 19th century, a part of the Louvre collection went to Orsay. The non-Western art collection are in Quai Branly nowadays, and the Asian collections are in Guimet, but they used to be in the 19th century, they used to be in the Louvre. Nonetheless, we have 9 curatorial departments, Eastern antiquities, Greek, Roman, of course. We have the largest Etruscan collection in the world outside of Italy, and we have a wonderful Egyptian collection. As you know, the first director of the Egyptian department was Champollion. This place is highly connected to the science of Egypt.
Champollion was the one who deciphered
and deciphered the language of the ancient Egyptians. So Champollion has worked in this place. So the place is full of stories.
Because we say that Mona Lisa is catching a lot, but I know that Egyptian museums are also catching a lot of attention.
Yes, and I know that you're familiar with a fantastic museum in Turin.
Also the British Museum.
Yeah, the British Museum. Yes, I know. People come, they want to see the Mona Lisa, but they are curious about other things. And once you lend a hand to people and explain the collection and attract them to the collection, it's exactly what is happening with Louvre Couture, with the decorative art department, not the most popular one before the exhibition. It is crowded right now. It is as crowded as the Mona Lisa room. So it means that people are curious, and this is important for the project, is also to say that those extraordinary collections are for everyone to enjoy. Everyone should feel welcome in the Louvre and should have the tools also to understand, the keys to understand the work. And education, interpretation, mediation, as we say, is extremely important. And we're going to work a lot on this during the coming years, because we cannot stay as an elite place with such a number of people coming. You have to talk.
Do they pay ticket?
Half of the French visitors of the Louvre do not pay anything. They enter for free. We have a gratuity policy that is very generous. Young people under 26 do not pay. If you're French or European, you do not pay. And young people from all over the world under 18 do not pay to enter the Louvre. So it's quite...
That's what, according to what you were saying before, that it's a museum for everyone.
Yeah, it is. It is. I opened the doors of the museum on the closing day, which is Tuesday, in the Louvre, to schools, because I want the young kids of France to discover, generally it's their first visit to the Louvre, they go with their teacher, It should be a moment of pleasure, a wonder, something a memory that they will keep, a good memory that they would keep forever. And it's very touching to go in the galleries on Tuesdays, where a lot of things are happening because it's closed, but we are disinstalling works, we're hanging the pictures, cleaning the place, restoring. And the young kids walk around, discover the collections, and they see also the work that is done, the museum alive, people who actually work in the museum. And I think they discover the place in a very nice way, very relaxed, pleasant, and with a real sense of enjoyment, because you need to have a certain quality of visit. And it's exactly what is at the heart of a project that President Macron has announced. The idea of a gallery dedicated to Mona Lisa is an idea to allow people that will make the reservation, because we will have slots, time reservation, to enjoy their moment in front of Mona Lisa. Because when you want to understand Leonardo's genius, you have to take a few moments in front of a picture. It's not something that you just watch, or look at for 2 seconds. You have to contemplate the work. You have to enter into the landscape, the genius of the composition, the way it changes everything within the rules of portraiture, of Renaissance portraiture. Before Leonardo, it was a profile coming from the Roman and antique medals, as we know. And with Mona Lisa, you have something very sophisticated in the composition. She's looking at you, but she's turning a little bit her body. So there's a sort of dynamic there, which is very subtle. And this kind of thing, you need to enjoy it and be able to look at it.
They did something like this with another icon, the Nefertiti in the Berlin Museum, right?
Yes.
It was made by Chipperfield. They have a special...
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. We need, and it's why the competition will be interesting to see the proposition of different talented architects from probably all over the world, I can imagine.
But the competition unites the Mona Lisa and
absolutely.
The entrance.
The competition is about creating the new entrance and the new galleries below the Cour Carrée. So it's quite an exciting material, of course, for any architect in the world. I'm very curious because we are preparing the program of this competition. I'm very curious about the solution that the different architects will have, because it's a challenge. And we know that a few museums in the world have this kind of problem or luck. You mentioned Nefertiti in Berlin. Maybe you could say that the Night Watch in Amsterdam, or the Scream of Munch in Oslo could be something like this, where a singular work within an extraordinary museum is attracting the visitors. How do you deal with it?
What is amazing is that in the Italian gallery or the gallery, you have so many masterpieces. No?
Yeah.
I mean, you have incredible paintings here.
Yeah.
There's not only La Samotraccia or Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the Delacroix, the Géricault, the Latour, the Raphael. I mean,
it never ends. It's an extraordinary place.
It's difficult to organize. You are the president and director. Yeah. I imagine that you also have a very big organization job, right? To organize all this plus the shows.
It's a large museum. There's a lot of exhibition, but there's also performing arts, music. We have a movie festival right now dedicated to art. I was in the auditorium half an hour ago, and I will be there tonight to welcome some presentations. So it never stops. I mean, it's 2,300 people working in the Louvre. So the Met is about 2,000 people working too. So it's one of the largest cultural institutions in the world. It's a bit a city within a city. What is fascinating is the passion that everyone has, working in this museum. There's something that unites all these different professions, from somebody who deals with security, somebody who is installing, hanging the pictures, for instance, in the gallery, or the curator, or the marketing department, or the fundraising department. Extremely important fundraising.
You do a lot of fundraising.
We do.
Friends of the Louvre.
Friends of the Louvre, American Friends. We have an American organization too. We just had a wonderful dinner gala. With fashion, which was a fundraising event, actually.
Which is the equivalent of the Met fashion. No?
Yeah, but we do it in our own way. We have a little French touch there. But it was a first. This kind of dinner had never really been done by the Louvre. And we wanted to try the team,
It functioned?
Oh, yes. It was a wonderful evening.
You raised a lot of money.
And we raised €1.5 million for a single dinner. It was a first try, so it's not bad. It's very, very encouraging. And people were very happy about it. This is the kind of new dynamic that I want to bring to the Louvre, because I think the place is also more than a museum. It's a symbol of France, of Paris.
So they call the Louvre, which is like the...
Yeah, but it's not this is an independent organization. It's within the Louvre. I was a former student of École du Louvre. I used to study there, but this is a different organization, but it's within the Louvre. And we have also the Restoration Center, where a lot of our works are restored. It's an independent organization, but working a lot for the Louvre and within a few steps within the building. So it's quite easy and practical.
This is a great challenge, right?
Yeah, it
is. Do all these different...
Yeah.
And also you have an architectural problem that has to do with too many people.
Yeah,
there are never too many, but I know in Italy at the Uffizi in Florence, they had a problem of too many people crowd, and they had to reorganize.
It's a general problem. It's not only the Uffizi. If you go to Athens, the Parthenon, for instance, is encountering the same question, because international tourism has increased a lot, and we can be happy about it. And it's mean that more people are enjoying.
This is the most visited thing in Paris.
No, you have other places, but for free. Notre Dame is right now more visited than the Louvre, but it's completely free. And it has just reopened. If you want to make a comparison, the numbers are quite close to Notre Dame, but we are not for free. I mean, more than half of our visitors pay, so it's a bit different. The problem is not to have many visitors. It's a luck, because it means that we generate revenues and that it's a possibility also to renovate the building, to think about the new entrance, the new gallery. So it's very important.
Do you buy sometimes new?
Yes, we buy all the time. 20% of our ticketing revenue is given to acquisitions. We bought recently 2 wonderful pictures, one Chardin, one still life, a basket of strawberries. Beautiful. I mean, 18th century.
Where did you buy it? In auction? Or?
No, we bought it in Paris. It was a bit complex because it was classified as a national treasure. It couldn't go out of France. So we negotiated, after the auction. And the other one is an extraordinary picture that is at the center of an exhibition right now, a small panel by Cimabue. We have 2 Cimabues now, one large maesta, and this little panel, The Mocking of Christ. We just restored the 2 things. It's extraordinary. And we dedicated an exhibition to the birth of Italian painting in the late 13th century, when everything is changing from the Eastern icons and type of the golden background, the gold backgrounds, and suddenly you see faces, individual portraits. You see the bodies. You see the start of the perspective that will be at the heart of the Renaissance. And this is so moving and so interesting. And what is very encouraging is that this exhibition dealing with 2 very, very old pictures, that are really at the birth of Western painting, modern Western painting, is now being discovered by young people. And they have a passion for that because it's a new narrative about the history of painting. And when I see young people in the exhibition, it's exactly what the Louvre is about. Opening eyes, opening minds.
They said not long ago that young people didn't like old masters, right?
Completely untrue. Completely. The most fashionable thing is old master right now. Oh, absolutely. I can tell you, because the fact of going back to the origin, to a certain primitivism, is extremely interesting. And I think that people now are obsessed with time and history. We are in a very complex moment, definitely. We are looking for probably places where we can confront ourselves to a perspective of long time and history. And we have a very important number of young people. And when I say young people, it's under 25 in the Louvre, because I think they also this idea that they're not old master or modern or contemporary art. There's a continuity of creation. You can be touched and moved by a fragment coming from Mesopotamia, 5,000 years old. The same way you are moved by Renaissance masterpiece or Delacroix or whatever. I think it's the same kind of emotion, because I think deeply in those places, as in the Uffizi, as in the Met or British Museum, we are dealing with humanism. This is places that are dealing with the most fragile part of human memory or testimony, the most beautiful ones also. But they are just fragments of the past, and we are here to give them to the new generation. My job is really being passeur, as we say in French. I'm just here to organize this transition as smoothly, as pleasantly, as exciting as possible.
People, when they visit the Louvre, how long does it take to visit the Louvre? And are they coming back to visit something else?
Very interestingly, they take a very long time to visit, almost 3 hours, the average time of visit, which is quite unique in the world. As you gently remind your listeners, I used to run the Musée d'Orsay. The average time of visit in the Musée d'Orsay is about 40-45 minutes. People run to the Impressionist gallery, they see Monet, the other wonderful artists, and generally that's it. And Van Gogh, of course. And the journey, that's it. In the Louvre, because people realize that it's a large museum with different kinds of collection, e.g. Italian painting, French painting, whatever, they organize the visits to take their time, which I think is very interesting for the project we are working on, because I want them to be able in the near future to spend a day in the Louvre, have a nice moment for lunch, relaxing moment, have poses. We do not offer comfort of visit, that is sufficient right now. People want that. It's tiring to walk around in a museum. I mean, the Louvre is physically exhausting. You need a good pair of shoes, of sneakers to go around, and you need sometimes to sip a coffee. And if you walk around with young children or with elderly people, because generally people also visit the Louvre not alone, generally with other people. It could be friends, family, it could be a group, but it's generally a collective experience, which is also interesting for us because it means that it's about sharing something, sharing a moment together, sharing an emotion, an experience, making memories together, which I think is an interesting thing. And we should make this moment the most beautiful and easy and comfortable, because I do not think that looking at art should be painful, boring, and exhausting. Right. It should be absolutely the contrary.
You're working also on security,
yes, but I cannot tell all the secrets of the Louvre. But a museum is today a very complex organization, and we need to protect, of course, the works, but also the people working and our visitors. And in the world of today, half of the staff of the Louvre is dedicated to the security. And this is, as you know, any public place in the world, a very serious responsibility. So we take that very seriously. And of course, the new project will be designed with all the prescriptions in terms of security and new technologies also that will be dedicated to it.
Cool. And what about exhibitions?
Exhibitions.
Do you have in mind new big exhibitions?
All the time. A large museum is like an opera. We are now working on the programs of 29, 30. It's the large exhibitions need to be planned very much ahead because we generally co-organize them with other partners in the world. You need to secure the loans coming from public museum, private collections. So it's a big part also of the job of a museum. We have wonderful, wonderful project ahead. But for instance, in a year's time, we will be opening a wonderful exhibition dedicated to the sort of comparison of dialogue between Rodin and Michelangelo. When Rodin was becoming the great artist we know in Paris in the 19th century, he used to go to the Louvre to copy, to draw, and he used to draw the slaves, the two slaves of Michelangelo. It's one of a line of programs that I want to explore is what I call Le Louvre des Modernes, the way modern or contemporary artists have been or are still looking. Louvre Couture is a famous story at the collection of the Louvre and how the Louvre keeps inspiring modern and contemporary art. And I think the show is going to be beautiful, beautiful loans from Italy, of course, beautiful drawings lent by the Royal Collection of England, for instance, of Michelangelo, the drawings of Rodin. We are co-organizing with Musée Rodin. I just saw the work of the architect, the designer who will design the scenography of the show. And there's a space that will welcome visitors where you have the slaves of Michelangelo surrounded by the shadows of Rodin. And just that is the Louvre I am dreaming about. This is the kind of moment where it's beautiful, but at the same time, it tells you something about creation, inspiration, the fact that there's no barrier between old and new. It's just the emotion.
You also contemporary artists, no? You had
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And we had commissions. My predecessor had commissioned with Cy Twombly, for instance, and but I cannot reveal the artist who is working. But in November, we'll reveal the first commission that I commissioned as president of the Louvre. And I just received images from the artist this morning.
But if you don't tell me the name...
No, I cannot. It's a secret. Just to tell you that it's a living thing. I created 2 artist studios in one of the pavilion of the Louvre, pavilion floor. Elizabeth Payton has a studio in the Louvre right now, and she's painting in the Louvre. And Kader Hatia is also invited as a guest artist in residence. And I love that. I love the idea that living artists are working with us because great artists sense things before anyone else. They feel the zeitgeist,
What you were telling me is that in one way you're renovating the premises, reorganizing, and then also your ambition is to be very lively,
lively, open,
open. People, to young people. But that's a strange message you give. I mean, an interesting message, the one of the old masters. That the young people, because in the auctions or in the art market, the old masters are a bit out of fashion.
But I guess
the idea that young people.
No, I do not completely agree with you. For museums, we had a wonderful Van Eyck exhibition around the restoration of one of our masterpieces, done by a very talented young curator. She's 30 years old. The curator of the Zimbabwe show is, I think, also 30 years old. And they reflect their generation's, I think, concerns about having a purpose, a sense of purpose. And the fact of being and working on artists, that come from very long time ago, I think is something that their generation are very much concerned with, much more than my generation. I am a 19th century specialist. I was all for Manet, Courbet, my point of specialty. I left it when I left Orsay, but I was fascinated by the birth of modernity, the modern Paris Baudelaire, that was 30 or 35 years ago. And I see the youngest generation of curators, they are much more fascinating by the continuity, the possible continuity between ancient world, antiquities, or the ancient old masters, with this modern sensitivity, understanding, confronting to things that could be, far from you, but tell you things about yourself, because it's very interesting. But I think that they are looking for something. And again, it's a sense of purpose. And I think that those places, again, a place like the Louvre is giving a sort of depth of, there's a weight, but a beautiful weight, that comes from the past. But, we are not out of nowhere. We come from something. Humanity has a long story. Artistic expression has always been a need for man, That's the reality. That we shouldn't forget this in this very crazy world we are living. It's also what makes us human.
And there are many people who visit the Louvre from telephone, on the internet.
All our works are available on our database. You have images, on our smartphone, you have everything. But the Louvre and going to the Louvre is about meeting the real thing, experiencing the real thing. And, there was a lot of questioning during COVID saying, but we all have everything online, So maybe when museums reopen, nobody will go there, everybody will stay in front of his iPad or whatever. Completely untrue. People went back to theaters, to opera, to museums. And it's such a pleasure to experience the real thing with the problems, even with the problems, because you are living something that is very unique. And I think that people want to make their own memories too. It's very important.
What I also like is from that selfie in front of the original
very
work,
true.
Right?
Yeah, very true.
You're not against that.
No, I'm not against that, because how can you be against your own time, And I think that we are all making photographs with our smartphones, and maybe it will be out of fashion in a few years' time. It's highly possible. But I think what is behind this thing is I am here and now. and Mona Lisa for 2 seconds is mine. And I'm keeping this personal memory with me. And I have nothing against keeping a personal memory of a Louvre. Because I think if it makes life better, it's a way of sharing something that you enjoyed with your family, with your friends. That's okay. Louvre is about that.
You have 30,000 square meters, 36,000 works, exposé, but you have 500,000 works on the storage. But you have, they say that you have a preference for a Tiziano painting, L'Homme Elkann. Is it true?
No, it's very true. But it's not very original. It's such a masterpiece. But I was mentioning it because L'Homme Elkann is in the Salle des États, where the Mona Lisa is today. And we have an extraordinary Venetian collection around Mona Lisa. And people queue for Mona Lisa and don't pay any attention to Tiziano, Veronese, and this extraordinary picture is there. And it breaks a little bit my heart. And in a few years' time, it will be adored again, the proper way it should be. But it's really a resume of what the problem of the Louvre today is. So we have wonders.
That you have this extraordinary painting that
nobody's looking at. It's a very famous picture, in the history of painting. Fascinated in the 19th century. Manet was fascinated by this picture. It's a very famous picture. And today people are so much focused, queuing up, to have a few seconds in Mona Lisa that they do not care or do not take the time. And they do not have the time to look at this extraordinary picture. And that should not be what the Louvre is about. And it's what I'd love to correct with the whole team of the Louvre, and in a few years' time to be able to share a Louvre where you will enjoy your favorite work of art or discover other works of art in a very pleasant manner.
So after all, you don't want a museum to be something boring and something that people say, oh my God, I have to go to the museum. But you want it to be a joyful experience.
A joyful, a pleasant museum should be about emotions. They are about works of art, so they should be about emotion, your personal emotion, and the way you make a very old work contemporary because simply by the fact that you're looking at it. That's what a museum is about. If we are successful for that, then we do our job correctly. Of course, we are all about curatorial expertise and restoration, conservation. Of course, this is, obvious. But in the end, let's remember when you care about art, the first emotion you had during a visit, during, a film, an opera, music, whatever. This is what those places are about, to trigger emotions and say the world can be difficult, life can be difficult. But this is, a place where I can go.
You said at the beginning it was exhausting,
it is right now. It is.
Isn't it better to say, I come to visit the paintings. Next week, I come to see the Egyptian.
That's the best way to
In a month, I will come to see Greek. And because to see everything together at the end of the day, it's too much.
Somebody has calculated that if you want to see everything in the Louvre, it takes you more than 3 days, technically speaking. So one visit is impossible. And it's exactly what we are working on in the project. When I say in the near future, and especially for people who live in Paris or near Paris or stay in Paris a few days, you will be able to go to the Louvre for 1 hour, one work of art, and come back for another day for 1 hour and one work, because this is the best. And I know, friends who come once a week to Louvre, just half an hour, select a work, a gallery, they enjoy it, and that's it.
Yeah, that's the point. Because, of course, if you come from Tokyo, you may come once or twice in your life. But if you live in Paris...
No, that's very true.
What is the difference between how many people from Paris and how many...
I don't have a precise number, but you have 70% of our visitors are international visitors. 30 are French. And within this 30... I can't remember exactly coming from Paris, but we have a large number of visitors coming from all over the world. And why we are creating this other entrance and keeping the pyramid as an entrance is to be able to welcome everyone, welcome the international tourists as the frequent visitor living in Paris, or the schools, of France or of European schools. We need to be prepared and have perfect preparation for each type of visitor, which is not the case for the moment. For the moment, we are welcoming, everyone, not in a very satisfactory way. We should be able to welcome, and according to your profile of visitor, you should find solutions and options of visit that will be the best. If you want to see only the masterpieces in 1 hour, 3 masterpieces, okay, it's okay. You will have the right visit to do it. But if you're frequent visitors and you want to come every week, you should find a type of card to enjoy it and to access quickly and easily to the collection. And it's exactly what is at the heart of the project we are working on right now.
And you have also a writer in the house, right? That writes a kind of a diary every day about, every week. I don't know what's going on in the Louvre.
We invite among the contemporary artists, we love to invite poets, writers also. We just published a book of poetry. We invited 100 poets all around the world to write about the Louvre. And it was translated in English. I was very, very proud because it was in the New York Times selection of the best books of the year, which was a big satisfaction for us because poetry is so much part of the history of Louvre also. Louvre has inspired beautifully poets from the beginning. And so for me, it's part of this opening the doors and windows.
Baudelaire was coming to the Louvre. No, wasn't it Baudelaire?
Baudelaire
was coming here all the time.
Baudelaire has written wonderful things, but writers in the 19th century, the Louvre is very much at the center also of literature. But it's still very true, it inspires when you talk about with writers today, the Louvre is a big machine that creates imagination, that stimulates imagination. We have even published cartoons inspired by the Louvre, manga. We published our first manga inspired by the Louvre. And it's a big success with young people. And it's all about stories, taking place in the Louvre. So it never stops. Movies are shot in the Louvre. We have TV series. I'm very open to this pop culture dimension of the Louvre because this is part of the magic of the Louvre too. And some people say, but, I saw years ago the Da Vinci Code or whatever, I wanted to see the real thing. That's okay for me. It's a good way to discover what Louvre, so there's no problem about it.
So I can say that you are a great woman, but you're also very lucky, to be.
I am. I am very lucky, and I try to be a good director.
Extraordinary collection, just by the Seine. So you just crossed the bridge.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. Yeah, I crossed the bridge and I took a little detour because I worked for 6 years on the Louvre Abu Dhabi project, which we didn't mention.
We didn't talk about this.
No. We have 2 other Louvres there, which are also... I was in Abu Dhabi 10 days ago.
How is it going?
Very well. It's a big success, as other Louvre in the northern part of France, Louvre Lens. I was in Lens yesterday for the board meeting, and those are wonderful.
What do you mean when you say Abu Dhabi? You have things that are permanent there, or you send them from here?
Yes, we send works. We are co-organizing the shows. We are very much part of the life of those museums.
But the Louvre of Abu Dhabi belongs to France?
No, it belongs to the United Arab Emirates. It's a diplomatic agreement between the 2 countries. Quite a unique way.
But also the collection belongs to them?
A part of a collection, it's a growing collection. They are acquiring.
So they're making...
And the collection is in dialogue with the Laurence from the Louvre and of the French Museum. And little by little, the collection is growing. And how was your
experience there?
Extraordinary. And it probably prepared me in a very intense way to run Orsay. I always say that I would never become president of Orsay and more president of the Louvre without the Louvre Abu Dhabi experience. Because it's exactly what the world is about today. Not only about New York, Paris, London, the old world of museums, but it's about the family is expanding in museums with other parts of the world. The modern Arab world is an extremely important.
Korea.
Absolutely. And I was 40 when I worked on the project, and it changed my vision of the museum. It's really about being able to talk to visitors who do not have our cultural references and be able to share culture. And the whole project is a highly diplomatic and political project.
But this is also something that starts from nothing, right?
Yes, but it's not nothing now.
But it wasn't designed to be a palazzo for...
No, but it was designed beautifully.
To be a museum.
Yeah, but it was designed beautifully. It's, I think, Jean Nouvel's masterpiece. It was really designed as a museum. And I worked a lot with Jean on the project. I learned a lot working with a great architect, and in a way it prepared me for the competition that we're going to have, because I know what it is.
But this is more contemporary,
Yeah, but it was contemporary, but it's the Louvre. If you go there, you will see works from the Louvre, and the new entrance, the new galleries will be the work of a contemporary architect within, the palace. So that's fascinating.
Competing?
I don't know. We haven't opened the competition yet, so I cannot answer for you.
Thank you very much for
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And for your time. Thank you. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Merci infiniment.
Alain Elkann interviews.